Good afternoon, Lockhart Lions. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I have a number of things that I'd like to talk with our community about. And first, a couple of logistical things. We do have a live chat section. I did post in the live chat already an email address named LISD COVID questions. And that is an email address that is live. And at any time, you're welcome to email that account and we will get you an answer within 24 hours. During the course of this presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat at the end of the presentation or conversation. I will review those questions and answer as many as I'm able to. But again, if you have a specific question that is not answered this evening, please email LISD COVID questions at lockhart.txed.net. So that's an important thing. So the purpose of today, as you know, there are school districts all across the state of Texas who are beginning to share their plans and processes, and we wanted to communicate with the entire community and just let you know where we are, the process that we've been going through, and what's to come. So we do have a school board meeting next Monday on the 27th, and what I want to do is share some of the major highlights and recommendations that we will be taking to our board of trustees next Monday, in an effort to communicate and not have you guessing for another week as we wait for that board meeting. But that is the plan, and I wanted to share a few things in terms of just some background information. And through this entire process, going back from from all the way to March, when we had to start distance learning, the district has been planning and preparing for the day that we brought kids back into the building. Unfortunately, last school year, as we know, we were never able to do that. Certainly this summer, we've been planning and preparing a lot. We've had a ton of different conversations to safely reopen our schools. There's some things that have been guiding our conversations, and student safety and staff safety is, of course, number one. And everything that we do are centered around student and staff safety. We also have some other guiding principles. We want to ensure that all of our students and staff are not only safe, but challenged, healthy, engaged, and supported. And, in the school environment, those things are critical. As COVID-19 continues to spread across the country and across the world, we want to ensure that we make decisions and we build the infrastructure needed to not only get us through the short term of this, but also that we make sustainable decisions that build a high level of resiliency across the organization and across the school district. So that's in our mind as well. Equity is another important thing that when we make decisions, we want to ensure that we're doing that with an equity lens and ensuring that every student in Lockhart ISD is being considered, and that we're doing everything possible to address issues of equity. And last but not least, everything that we want to do, especially in this ever-changing environment, is to ensure that we're preparing our staff to deliver the type of instruction and education that our kids deserve. So there's a lot of thought going into before we do something, being prepared so that we are ready to implement it effectively and give our teachers and our students the highest chance to be successful, regardless of the learning environment. So those are kind of the guiding principles that are always on our mind. We make decisions, we go back to those things and ensure that we'll be consistent. In terms of the process, we've engaged our staff a lot. We've done staff thought exchange, we've done surveys. As you know, as parents, we've done surveys with parents as well. The last survey is kind of split. We have about 50-50 parents telling us that they are going to keep their kids home for distance learning. And then the other half of the community saying that they prefer to send their kids back to school. Every day that goes by, those numbers are changing and adjusting. But I'll share a little bit more about your ability to change that choice here later in the conversation. Of course, we've had a teacher committee of about 60, a little over 60 teachers who have been guiding us and pushing us to think through all of the safety precautions that we need to have in place and procedures and expectations. And I want to thank all of our staff who have taken the time this summer to engage in those conversations so that we can prepare to open up. As you know, County Judge Hayden had a press conference late last week, I believe on Thursday, expressing concern for the rise in cases, the rise in hospitalizations, and unfortunately the rise in deaths. So those COVID numbers are something that we look at closely. For example, in Caldwell County, just over the last couple of weeks, we've gone from 460 cases to 841 cases were reported today. And that's heavy and something that we consider. The staff in Lockhart ISD, the vast majority of our staff do not live in Caldwell County. The vast majority of our staff live in Hays and Travis County. So that's data that we follow closely as well, understanding that our staff commutes to work here in Lockhart, and that the context of those counties are even greater than what we see here in Caldwell County. Most recently, for example, in Hays County, a couple weeks ago, or 1 week ago, they reported about 70 hospitalizations, and just in a week they're up to 84. And a week ago, 11 deaths, and now 17 deaths this week. So it's something that we're consistently monitoring to ensure that we make decisions based on the community that we live in, and not just Caldwell County, but the broader community that the majority of our staff is commuting from. With that, that's kind of the context. We are reviewing the course of CDC recommendations, but also the governor's executive orders and the guidelines set for public schools from the Texas Education Agency. And all those things are leading us to make some decisions. And I see some questions coming in, and I will answer those questions as we go through. And if I don't, I'll come back and look at those questions and see if I can answer those. So in terms of the recommendations that we will be sharing with our Board of Trustees next week on the 27th, is that the first thing is that we're looking at changing our school instructional calendar so that the first day of school is changed to August the 24th. So pushing that back 3 days to allow us to better orient our staff, to better train them, better prepare for the opening of schools. The next recommendation is to start the first 3 weeks of school virtually for all students. We feel that is the safest way to open up schools and keep our staff and our children safe throughout the district. So those are two major recommendations that we will share on the 27th with the Board of Trustees. We will also recommend that in terms of extracurricular activities in grades 7 through 12, that even if we are in distance learning, that we have an opportunity for students to participate in extracurricular activities. Also, we will be sharing that the last day to change for a parent, the learning preference sign up, will be August the 9th. So on the 27th, on Monday, after we present all of our recommendations to the Board of Trustees, when our plan is approved by the Board of Trustees on Monday, we will share everything in writing and in paper so that you will have a document of all of our processes, procedures, safety precautions. All of those things will be published on the evening of the 27th. I do want to go over and give you some general info. I see some of the questions that are coming in, and I'll cover some of those things that that I can share at this point. In terms of distance learning, we had an experience with distance learning in the spring, and I want to state very clearly that the distance learning that we had in the spring will be very, very different than the distance learning that we have moving forward. Our teachers did an outstanding job of shifting very quickly in a matter of a couple of weeks to roll out a new distance learning plan. Since that time, we've had more time to plan and prepare, so we'll have a more robust distance learning experience, as well as TEA. The Texas Education Agency has a lot more guidelines and processes that we have to follow. For example, daily attendance laws and regulations are back into effect. As we know, in the spring, TEA did not require us to do that. Moving forward, we will have to take daily attendance regardless of a student is in person on campus or learning at home. So, for example, in the spring, a student may get a week's worth of work and do it all on one day, maybe at the end of the week. In the new distance learning, they will be required to complete daily assignments, and they will get grades on those daily assignments, so that a student will no longer be able to wait to do all of their work in one day, for example. In terms of attendance laws, we will have to follow those attendance laws that we have to follow, and follow court proceedings and those types of things as we do in a typical school year. So all those guidelines are back into effect, and we have to enforce those per TEA. As I mentioned, grading guidelines go back into effect. We will start calculating GPA and class rank as well for any students taking high school credit courses. So all of those things will be back into play that are much different than when we left off. Gifted and talented services will be coordinated. Students will have a scheduled time to interact with other GT peers, and those schedules will come out after parents have finalized their selection for in-person or distance learning. I want to go over just a couple of the highlights in terms of health and safety procedures. There are a lot of different procedures that we've established, and again, we will publish that the evening of the 27th after our Board of Trustees meeting. But it's a document well over 30 pages that will detail for you all of those procedures. Some of the questions that I've already seen come through in the chat, for example, a mask. A mask or a face shield will be required for all staff and for all students. We will be providing face shields for students in pre-K through second grade. And we will have extra masks in the case that a student forgets their mask. If you're not able to provide a mask, we will certainly provide a mask for your child as well. But students will be able to wear their own masks from home if that's something that you can provide for them. We will be asking and have health screening protocols in place. This will be a very important thing that we will share with parents, but essentially you're screening for the COVID-19 symptoms that really are showing up in a way that's not usual for your child or for our staff members. And again, we'll be sharing these things in writing with you on Monday evening. Transportation will be, we'll have a number of guidelines for transportation as well. Masks will be required on school buses. We will group families in same households together and space out other students. You will not be able to share a seat with anyone that's not in your household. We have all of those numbers based on your learning preference form where you signed up for the transportation as well. And I just want to be clear, based on those numbers, we will be able to seat households together and keep students separated. But based on those numbers that we currently have, we will not be able to ensure that every student in there is more than 6 feet apart. So that's something that we'll be working with parents if your student rides the bus, and ensuring that you understand that they may be closer than 6 feet, but they will not be in the same seat or in the same row as someone outside of their household. But they may be sitting in the seat behind them. We will have arrival and dismissal procedures that are very organized, and in a way that gets kids in the building as safely as possible, limiting any contact that they may have with other students. And essentially, once kids are in the building, they will be with their class and stay with their class for the remainder of the day to isolate them from other students outside of their class if they're in the physical building. In terms of what I had a lot of questions about classroom configurations. Desk and tables will be 6 feet apart within the classroom. They will be facing the same way. It is going to look different than when, in a typical school year where we used to want to have kids close together, face to face, collaborating, those types of things. In-person school will look different to where we will have to separate students to maintain that social distancing within the classroom. Right now, with half the parents saying they're going to do distance learning, and half the parents saying their kids are going to come to school. Essentially, that reduces our class sizes down to a level where we can have 6 feet from students inside the classroom. But it will look different than what it used to look like. In terms of transitions and what transitions will look like in the schoolway, we will have, if you imagine, just one-way traffic in the hallways, regardless of the school, to ensure that kids are limiting the exposure of students who they're walking by and near to just the kids in their class. So again, a very different transition atmosphere. In terms of meals, breakfast will, just like always, will be served in the classroom. In terms of cafeteria food for lunch, we will, when possible, have kids eat in the cafeteria. Not all kids, but if we can maintain 6 feet of social distancing for that one particular class, and then that class will be at least 12 feet away from any other class, we will have kids eating in the cafeteria. But also, a lot of the kids will be eating in their classrooms. That with their teacher. We do have some situations to where even during the first 3 weeks of school, kids may need to come to class in a physical building. For example, career and technical education courses at Lockhart High School, where in order for students to maintain the pace to get their certificates and those types of things, they will have to come to school to take those courses for some portion of the day. So there are some other examples that we'll share with families, but there may still be kids, even during that first 3 weeks of school, maybe students coming up to the campuses. Visitors, this school year, we will try to limit any visitors. I think school is one of those places to where typically we want families, we want volunteers in our school buildings. But unfortunately, during this time, we will not be able to have those volunteers. We're not going to be able to have families come eat lunch with their children. Just in very rare and specific circumstances, will we have visitors in the building for any reason. We will try to do all parent meetings, parent-teacher meetings, those types of things. We'll try to do all those things virtually as much as we can. In terms of our ACE program, if your student is involved in our ACE program at the elementary school level, the ACE program will be virtual for the time being until we learn otherwise. As well, at our Kids Club program, so our after-school care program, if you participate in that, we are still planning to have that, and we will do it differently this year. We will not transport kids from campuses. Every campus at the elementary level will have an after-school program so that students are no longer transported from campus to campus. So they will stay at their home campus. In terms of PPE or protocols for cleaning, disinfecting, the district has purchased a lot of supplies, hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, touch-free towel dispensers. All of these things are currently being installed, and our custodial staff is working and being trained on the CDC COVID-19 cleaning and disinfecting guidelines, so that we can ensure that our campuses are clean and safe according to CDC guidelines. A couple of other things that we will have. We will have a parent training series. In one of the surveys that we had, there was an overwhelming response from parents that you would like some online virtual training tools just to give you a better understanding of some of the resources and online tools that we're using as a school district. So we'll be rolling out a parent training series for you guys very soon. Another question that I've had frequently is, are meals going to continue to be delivered? And we're still working through that plan, but we expect by August the 10th to have a plan for if we're going to be able to continue delivering meals in once we come back to school. I also have had a lot of questions about meet the teacher. How am I going to learn who my child's teacher is? We will be having from August the 10th through August the 14th teacher virtual home calls. So the teachers will be calling you to introduce themselves, especially at the elementary level where your child has one teacher. At the secondary level, one of your child's teachers will be calling and checking in and greeting you and having those conversations. I do want to remind everyone that it's very important that you remember to register in Skyward online so that we have the most up-to-date contact information and just your information that you are a registered student in Lockhart ISD. So if you have not done so, please take the time to register your child. And at this time, I want to go through, we have a lot of questions in the live chat, and I want to glance at those and see which ones I can answer in the time that we have. So the question is, can we change the status of distance learning after we had submitted once? Yes, you can change your status at any time. The last day to change the status of distance learning or on-campus instruction will be August the 9th. So you have some time to review the materials that we're going to publish on the 27th to make the most informed decision for your family on if your child is going to stay home and do distance learning, or if your child is going to come to school when we open the building back up. So again, that is due on August the 9th. That is a requirement by the Texas Education Agency, actually. Some of you, I've had a lot of parents say, well, why do we have to wait so long? I want to know the plan now. That's a requirement by the Texas Education Agency that we have to comply with. So that's going to give us a short turnaround time to finalize the class rosters and all of those things. But you can do that on the same link on our website that you used to do it the first time. When you change it, you can use that same link, and we will automatically pull your last submission. So it's time-stamped, and we will go and look at the timestamp, and whichever one was the last one submitted, we will take on and sign you up for distance or in-person that way. In terms of fine arts, I have some questions there. Theater, athletics, any type of extracurricular activities. Those coaches, sponsors, teachers will be communicating with you. But even with the 3-week rollout of distance learning, they will still be allowed to participate in those things as long as UIL approves that. We haven't had any word from the UIL yet. We're expecting hopefully something this week to get some guidance from them. But at this time, we still want our kids to participate in that, and we will have safety precautions for them when that happens. Okay. So yes, students will have to wear a mask or face shield for the entire time that they are in school. Obviously, to eat, that'll come off. We also are planning some opportunities for when kids can safely remove their mask and maintain social distancing to give them a break. But outside of those things, they will have to wear their mask the entire day. The status of Lion Link, we are connecting those, and I actually just had a meeting with our internet provider, and they expect to have all those completed by August the 19th. So if you haven't had your installation date yet, you should expect for that to happen soon. So yes, so there are procedures for. We'll actually have a flow chart as well. So we'll have procedures that will walk you through different scenarios. So if a kid is exposed to COVID-19, if a kid is suspected to have it, if they test positive, if a family member tests positive, if they're in a classroom with someone who tests positive or is exposed, we will detail all of those procedures and flow charts. We'll publish that on 27th Monday night. So in terms of distance learning, and can you change that midterm? So once after August the 9th, you'll be locked in for the first 9 weeks. You'll be given an opportunity every 9 weeks, essentially, if you want to switch from distance learning or in person. And so that's kind of how that works. Every 9 weeks, you'll have an opportunity to change again. Of course, in the situation to where if you are in person and you decide, you know what, I want to go distance learning, you can make that decision to change to distance learning, at any time. But if you're in distance learning and you want to come to campus because of all the planning and preparation it takes to prepare to bring a kid to campus and enroll them in a course safely, we'll only do that every 9 weeks. Um, Let's say a couple questions regarding internet. And if you have not signed up for Line Link Internet, I'll invite you to go to our website. There's a link on the homepage, or I'm going to go to lockhartisd.org, and you will see a place to sign up for the Line Link Internet. It will get you on the list for getting that installed. See some questions that, again, the testing, COVID-19 measures, again, all those procedures and specifics will be in the flow chart and manual that'll be published on the 27th. Once you have that, the 27th, you'll have a couple weeks until August the 9th to make your decision for in-person or distance learning. So again, are there going to be sports and fine arts, those types of things? We are planning to continue with extracurricular activities unless the UIL says otherwise, which we would have to look at other options if that became the case. Right now, we have not had any word from UIL yet. In terms of grab-and-go meals for students who do distance learning, we will share that plan by August the 10th. So we will have a meal delivery service plan, and if we're going to be able to do that, especially once school starts, where we have kids, we're transporting kids to school on the same buses that we were delivering that. So we're trying to figure out a way to do that now. We're working through all the logistics of that. And we're going to do everything that we can to continue to have the meal services and grab and go once we start in-person instruction. We just haven't worked through all those details yet, but by the 10th, we look to have a final plan for that. Let's see some more COVID response questions. In terms of school supplies, we have purchased school supplies, and when our teachers come back, our teachers are not on contract yet, but when they come back next month, we will be working in bundling individual supply bags for each child, and then we'll distribute that at the campus level for families at that time. Let's see. So in terms of the question specific to secondary, were they expected to switch classes every hour? No, secondary students will not switch classes. We will be grouping secondary students by common electives or CTE courses so that they will take their core classes together and then go to their common electives or CTE classes so that we have cohorts of students so that every period they're not switching and are with a new group of students being exposed to a different group of students. So we want to limit that exposure to a cohort in the same group of students. So even at the secondary level, they will be restricted to essentially the same group of kids throughout their school day. In terms of 504 plans, special education plans, those types of things, we will still, of course, have meetings with parents to ensure that your children are getting everything that they need in terms of accommodations or modifications. And you can expect to hear from our special ed departments, in the next couple of weeks about those meetings. Sorry, every time new questions pop up, I lose my spot and have to scroll back up to the top. So in terms of the school day, there's a question about the school day. No, the school day will not be shorter. We'll still be on, typical school day in terms of when we start and when we end. Actually, it may be a few minutes longer. So we'll share out the publish in the document on the 27th. We'll have the times based on the campus that school will start and school will end. So a couple questions on the school start date. So at the meeting on July 27th, we're making a recommendation to our Board of Trustees for the school start date to be August the 24th. So in terms of distance learning, I have a couple questions. Will it be real time? And I'm going to make a guess on what you mean by that. So the state of Texas is talking about two different ways you can do distance learning. One is real time or synchronous learning, which essentially means that the teacher is recording their live teaching and the student at home is watching on their computer and kind of following along all day. We will not be using that model. We will be using a model that the teachers will provide assignments every day, and the student will have that day to complete the assignment. And it doesn't matter if they complete it at 7 in the morning or 7 at night. Whenever they have the time to log on and complete that assignment, they'll have that flexibility. So if they miss their 9:30 class, they still have that opportunity to finish that work later or earlier in the day. That way, it gives a little more flexibility. But the Texas Education Agency has given us those two options, and we have to do one, and we feel like that gives us more flexibility for parents and students to do their work on their own time on a given day. But again, it will be different from the spring where they essentially had all week to do their assignments. Now they'll have all day to do their daily assignments. Sorry, I'm doing my best to read the. See a lot of repeat questions, so I'm trying to scan through them. I apologize. In terms of lecture for new material, I think that the direct teach there will be direct teach in the classroom, and also if you're doing distance learning. So the teachers will still have the ability to plan their lessons. We will not mandate that a teacher has to do explicitly a certain lesson. The teachers are still going to plan and prepare the best lessons that they can think of to educate your child. So that, but that will include some direct instruction. So if a student's in class, they will be sitting at a desk and the teacher giving them direct instruction. They will have the opportunity to practice, to use technology to engage with their peers and collaborate. It just will look a little different in that they're going to have to be spaced 6 feet apart in those classrooms. But our teachers are very creative in figuring out ways to get kids to still collaborate and talk and work together. Just having to do so in a new way, being distant at this point. So here's a good question. Kids will be in class all day. So what will happen in elementary schools? It's we're already set up that way. In secondary schools, the teachers will actually move, so that the students, we limit the student moving, but teachers will be able to move at times. And again, the kids will have to move because there are some courses where the equipment and things cannot be moved. So then the kids will move together, but try to stay with that same cohort to limit the exposure to other students that they're not currently in class with. Sorry, every time new questions come, I have to scroll back up. I apologize if I'm missing your questions. I do want to point you to the very first comment. I put a comment in there for COVID questions that will go to the district, and I can guarantee you get an individual response to your email if you send it there. So seeing other questions regarding lectures or the direct teach, I think is kind of what we call it. So yes, students who do distance learning will also have direct teach opportunities, so that they're taught. That was a big feedback that we had from parents from the spring. They felt like kids were doing assignments without any real direction or instruction. So we want to make those improvements so that kids doing distance learning get instruction just like they were in class. Um, I see some questions regarding, so in consultation, we do work with Dr. Lawrence. I actually had a phone conference with him earlier today, actually. And, so he is reviewing and giving us guidance on all of our safety procedures and health related processes. And again, those things will be published on paper on the 27th, that night after our school board meeting. So grading and distance learning, there will be some assignments, just like a typical grade, where teachers are assessing what kids know, and based on the teaching and direct instruction that they've received. Teachers will also be able to check in with students and assess them in that way to see where the child is and where the student is. So there'll be a couple different ways that we will check the progress in distance learning. All right, I'm trying to scan. And again, I do see a lot of questions that are specific to that I can assure you that will be in our documents, that will be published. We're currently getting it translated into Spanish, and then we'll get it approved by the Board of Trustees on Monday night, and then share it with the community after the Board of Trustees meeting. All right, so it looks like a lot of the questions, I'm going to go ahead and pause there. And again, I apologize if I did not answer your question. I do want to point you to, to the very top of the documents or on the live chat. There's an email. I'm putting it again at the very bottom. It's the COVID questions email, LISD COVID questions at Lockhart .txcd.net. If you email those questions, we will respond to your specific question and make sure that you get a response. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in this evening. We will post our document. It's a very lengthy document with all of our specific health protocols and procedures. And we want to get that to you on the 27th so that you have a couple of weeks to review that and to make a final decision on whether your child is going to be in distance learning or they're going to be in in-person learning after the first 3 weeks when we start in-person learning or plan to start that. So remember, you have until August the 9th to make that decision. So I want to thank everyone for your attention today and hope you have a great evening. And thank you for joining us.